Hello, my friends. Welcome back in. It's the end of year two. Our players should now be 18 and a half. So hopefully that means if they've been on youth contracts, they no longer are, right? So we're going to check on Chris Carpenter and Gregory Bros, see if Chase has got any more red cards. But first, we're going to go to Columbia. As always, the date at the top is June 30th, 2025. So they are 18 and a half, having been born on January 1st, 2007. James Mithrak is no longer in Colombia. I said we're going to Colombia, but he's no longer there. He's in Portugal with Benfica. Massive change. He was only with that club, Union Magdalena, for one season. Really, it looks like maybe half a season, because he joined Benfica in 2024/2025, maybe in the January window. We'll take a look at that. 725 grand. The reason I started with James is I'm trying to rotate who's at the beginning, and somebody had left a comment recently saying, I think James might be the potential wonder kid here. So again, Union Magdalena, 27 total appearances, all starts, 3 goals, 2 assists on just a 6-7-6, I should say. I mean, he made a step up from his hometown club, so okay, whatever. When did he join? January of this year. He joined in the January window, 5,500 a week, but he hasn't made a single appearance, which I think is a bit odd. Not even for like the B team. So he does have an appearance. Okay. I'm not sure why. I guess that's in the cup, right? It's showing he has 1 cup substitute appearance down here, not long enough to get a rating, more of like a, if you were a national team, it's like to cap tie him, but obviously that's not the case here. But that hasn't shown up in the history, which is odd. And then nothing for the B team. So they've essentially purchased him and slotted him into the under whatevers. Maybe the under 19s. He's not in the under 19s right now. He's not in the under 23s. Okay, so where is he? Well, this is interesting. He's in like the all players thing, but he's listed as unregistered, which my guess is that is just for the senior squad. And he's listed for loan. That's a bit odd, don't you think? So we're going to take a deeper look at his attributes here. This is Editor GHG checking in. What I've realized is this video is going to be very long if I go through each attribute section of each player one by one. So what I'm going to do instead is upload those to my Patreon. It'll be a free post. You don't have to be a subscribed member on Patreon to see it, but that way this episode doesn't end up being 42 minutes long, which it is right now. So I'm going to cut some of the stuff out. And if you want to do a deeper dive on the attributes, you can do that on patreon.com/grayhairgaming. His jumping reach is actually decreased by 1, which I don't know. I find that a bit odd. Like he's gained 4 pounds and he hasn't gained any strength, but you would think like you'd be able to jump more at, 18 and a half than you would at 17 and a half, but as you do. I also find it a bit interesting. There's now a youth prospect, right? An 18 and a half year old from Colombia, just moved to Portugal. His value has gone up to 10 million to 31 million. That is a massive increase. It was 450 grand to 1.4 million the last time we saw him. But even with all of that, I know he just moved like 6 months ago or 5 months ago, I guess, technically. But he's got nothing for the national team. He's not been in any of the squads because I just checked. Like he's not listed in the under 20, under 22, under 23, or the senior squad. Obviously, it shows that he has no youth caps. But I'm thinking like, did he even get called up? He's not even participating, which, Colombia's got a lot of really good players, but you would go like, wow, here's maybe he gets an opportunity in the coming year where you go like, here's a kid that just moved to Benfica. Like, he's pretty valuable. Is he on the up and up? But, he's got to probably get some appearances for Benfica as well. That's probably fair. Also, importantly, he stayed injury-free for the entire year. And also, he was only making $1,600 a week. So obviously, his wages have gone up. But I'm curious why the value has jumped up that high. Because, yeah, he signed a new contract. And it's a, 4-year deal or 4.5-year deal, I guess, technically. But that's a big jump in value from his wages went up like 3,900 or something like that per week. He was on 1,600. So that's really curious to me. Obviously, they have a 1-year contract extension option. This, I think, is a really big year. Can James start getting the occasional appearance for Benfica? Maybe he gets his regular playing time in the B team, but then those cup ties or those first round or whatever type games where you rotate in your younger guys in that you're expecting to beat that 4th division team or whatever. But that is a massive first player to look at. Let's go look at the next one. Next up, we'll take a look at CDB because I'm thinking maybe the only thing that maybe has happened here is playing time and, attribute increases since he just made the move to that French team in Ligue 2, which I'm not going to attempt to pronounce right now. I'm curious. Okay, they're still in Ligue 2, so clearly they didn't get relegated. They finished 11th, like pretty much bang average mid-table. Did he get any playing time? Yes, he did. 33 total appearances, 25 of those being starts, with a goal, 2 assists, and a player of the match. Go on, son. On a 6.83. Also got 6 cup starts with 2 goals and a player of the match at a 6.95. And also had 3 non-competitive games, I guess, friendlies or something like that to warm up. Obviously no continental competitions or anything like that. But, okay, makes the move for relatively cheap, 96 grand, comes in, starts playing. Pretty nice, pretty nice. Contract-wise, it is the original contract he was on. That has got 2 years left on the deal, $5,000 a week, so he's 500 behind James at this point. Still got that loyalty bonus that's being paid out. Injury standpoint, the only injury has happened that was a couple months ago. That's a bruised thigh for 5 days, so nothing major there. So he's stayed injury-free. Let's take a deeper look at his attributes now. He still has that orange dot on the DM, but probably playing more as that central midfielder, maybe like on attack or something like that. Oh, box-to-box midfielder. Would you look at those attributes? Delicious. Before I do the deep dive on the attributes, his value that was paid to Skoftabens was 56 grand. It's now risen to 96 grand. So I don't know if that's installments or if that's, because he played a certain number of games or something like that. But, a little bit more money going into the Swedish team there. So, but my goodness, that is a lot of development. His value the last time we looked at him also was 3.3 million to 10 million. That's up just a little bit to 4.3 to 13 million. He didn't have any player traits the last time we looked at him, and now he tries killer balls often and plays 1-2s. Very nice. Also, his reputation is increased by half of a star to a whole single star, which is now decent. Oh, and I have not missed this, apparently. I don't know if this is the only one we're going to have, but his personality is Wonderkid. So are we pretty firm that CDB is the only one, or are there others? I guess the time will tell. I hadn't noticed that yet. So he has the Wonderkid personality trait. Okay, fair enough. But even with that, he's got no youth caps and no senior team caps, which I find a bit odd. I mean, I know he just moved. If you go to the, okay, he would be, under 19 at this point? He's not listed there. He's not listed on the under 20s or the under 21s or the senior squads. So, maybe they're just waiting for him to really make his mark in France. Or maybe this is the year where, he'll have an opportunity. But that's some really nice development. We've obviously got very high potential here. I'm curious if he's the only one. From the high of that to Chris Carpenter is finally getting paid. He has escaped the American pay-to-play system. He's now contracted to AC Horsens, which is in the Danish second division, which is just fine. Fantastic. They're expected to finish second this season. What'd they do last season? We'll see when he moved. They just got relegated down from the top division. So obviously they signed Chris to help them recover their rightful place back in the top division in Denmark. He's on 1.9K a week. It is a deal until the end of next year, so 18 months from now. He signed it at the beginning of the year. Okay, so it's essentially a 2-year deal. He has an active, maybe he won't help AC Horsens come back. Let's take a look here. 2.1 million active relegation release clause. Before that, the minimum fee release clause was 4.4 million. But importantly, he's no longer paying to play the game. He's being paid $1,900 a week. His club didn't get a penny for him. And since US Soccer doesn't believe in solidarity payments, Real New York FC, all they get are 53 appearances, 2 goals, 8 assists, and 5 players in the match. He's on a 7.64 in that last season with the club that ran until December, and now he's moved. So he moves on a free. He gets 8, friendly, must be 8 appearances, non-competitive in 24-25. They're on the regular schedule, right? Like the European schedule, is that correct? Yes. So he comes in and he's brand new, so that he's playing with the youth squads probably, but also whenever they've got friendlies, they're slotting him in, and you got 8 starts on a 6.89, not bad, but then they get relegated. So does that mean he's going to play more frequently? Is he in? Yes, he's on the bench. Okay, squad player contract on the bench, worth 800 grand to 2.5 million. Who's he backing up here? It says RL versus LR. I'm not sure if that's normally how it says it in Football Manager, but he is very strong left foot. So I would think he's more of a left back than a right back. So he is potentially behind Anton Ekarov, who looks like a decent, tidy player. And then Labambo Mosonda, who looks about the same, to be fair, from an attribute standpoint. Obviously, he's more up and down the pitch, but he's also 30 years old. And Ekarov is 23. So, do they have any other? They do have Manny Perez as a additional. Is he really a right back, kind of like backup? But I would think Chris is like the first guy off the bench if the left or the right back needs to come off, maybe, would kind of be my guess. And again, they're playing in a 3 in the back system, which he doesn't really know, like the formal wing back role, which will be interesting to kind of see how that shakes out. But the exciting stuff is he's got a contract. He's officially made available for the second team, but that means they're just trying to get his match sharpness up there. So that's totally fine. So it's a bit of a mixed bag on the attributes. Let's take a deeper dive here. His corners and his finishing have both decreased by 1. Does that make sense? Because he's not the corner taker and he's not finishing, obviously, because he's in the back line, and he's gained 4 pounds. So that to me is interesting. You're coming from a club with essentially nothing to a club with 2.5-star training facilities, like decent, at least, training facilities, compared to no training facilities or youth facilities or anything like that with Real New York FC. So I find that a bit odd that some of the physical stuff has changed and not for the better. So did he have an injury? Maybe that's impacted his balance? Not this year, no. He had a hamstring strain and a pulled groin in previous years, but nothing, he's not had a serious injury. I find that a bit odd, to be honest with you. But 2.1 active release clause, I mean, you could argue he's in that range, right? 800K to 2.5 million. So seems really unlikely unless he just comes in and does an amazing job in the first 12 games or something like that, and maybe gets some, eyes on him going into the winter window. He is capped at the under 23 level. So it doesn't look like Chris made the Olympics roster, but he does, and the U.S. with a win, a draw, and a loss. So I guess they don't get out of Group B. I can't see the group, but it would make sense that they haven't gotten out because there's no more games after that. But he does play in the friendly in October, or he's on the bench. He doesn't play, but at least he makes the roster. He just doesn't come in. So I guess that's a positive. That that is in the recent past. They haven't had any games, obviously, in this calendar year, so he's not missed out on anything this season, or this calendar year, I should say. But it'll be really interesting to see, does somebody come in and activate that release clause? Obviously, he's got to get some playing time, but is he going to help AC Horsens stay in that top 2? That's their goal. That's their media prediction, to get re-promoted. And is that enough to get eyeballs on him to where he goes someplace else? Because we all know how hard it is to find a left back or a right back, and you got a guy who could do both. I would imagine that means he's relatively popular, but I could be wrong. All right, let's take a look at Gregory Bros, who's moved. Now he's moved. It looks like he's staying in Ireland because this is with Shelbourne. Okay, so he's in the first division now, although they are currently in last place by 3 points. Not great. He's not also listed as any kind of an important player over here. Doesn't matter. He's moved. Yay, he's no longer with Verona. Not that one. 700 a week. Okay, 190K to 550K. That's up, I want to say, from 85K to, 250? So he's essentially doubled his value. No youth caps, no senior caps, 700 a week. He signed his contract on Christmas Day. How about that? You get a Christmas gift to leave your former club and get a tiny little loyalty bonus. That's not a bad way to start the holiday season off, right? And he's an optional contract extension. His wages can go up. Obviously, he reaches 20 or 25 games. They got him on a free. He doesn't make a single appearance for Verona, which maybe that's just it being lower level in Football Manager, but you would imagine a guy that can go move on a free to a first division team should have gotten some sort of playing time, but I digress. He's got 6 total appearances, actually 7, because there's a cup appearance in there with a goal, you might add. So his first, for as far as we could tell, first official goal with a club is in one of the cups in Ireland. Also earned him a player of the match. His league appearances are on a 6.58. So not quite what you'd want to see, but it's early days. Those are all this season. So it's the Leinster Senior League Permanent TSB Metropolitan Cup. Easy for, it just rolls off the tongue now, doesn't it? We won't go take a look. They only played one game. So, or he only played one game, I should say. So, looks okay. I mean, the good news is he's there, and that's a real league. Let's see if he's lost like any significant attributes. So when we dive deeper in here, his agility has increased by 1 as well. Jumping reach has gone from a 7 to a 10. That's because he's gained an inch and he's put on 14 pounds. Wow. Okay. He took that 700 a week and he went straight to the pub. He's putting on that weight. Good for him. Additionally, his strength has increased by 1. So, I mean, I think it's definitely good news, right? He's gotten to a, quote unquote real club, a loadable league, if you will, in the game. Kind of a mixed bag on the attributes. He's getting paid. He's not like that superstar yet. We still got it. He's driven. He's a winger. So, that's all right. But definitely need to improve those, league appearances from that 6.58 rating. Let's go see when the last time he played. Okay, so this has not been the best season, you could say, for Shelburne, right? Bunch of donuts, red circles. The goodish news is that's not really been Greg's fault. His first appearance, I think, if I'm counting them correctly, doesn't come until May 16th. So he wasn't responsible for any of this stuff. In the win, he does a 6.0 with a yellow card against Waterford. So they win despite Greg's performance, I guess. Maybe it's a really bad yellow card. Maybe. I'm curious. Was there a penalty? Something? No missed penalties. I'm just wondering what caused it to be so bad. Had 1 interception, 1 clearance, 1 key pass, but only completed 1 of his 4 crosses. It must have been a bad yellow. That's the only thing that I can think of there. But then he stays in the team despite that. Does a 7.1 in a loss to Galway United. And then I just noticed this up here at the top against UCD Dublin. He does a 7.5 with the goal. They still lose. Oh, that's gutting. That's why their cup run didn't continue. But he scores the goal in the 20th minute, and then they concede another one, and then it goes to extra time and whatever. But he did all right in that one. That's not a bad way to kind of like announce yourself on the senior stage. Is I scored the 20th minute. Let's go. But then the season took a downhill turn, you could say, after that. So he does have that 1-year potential extension, but he's only got another, whatever that is. It's not even 18 months, 17 months on his contract. So it'll be interesting to see if he continues to develop or if he ends up going someplace else. Because, again, training facilities, 3-star, 2.5-star, depending on if he's in the senior team or not. Speaking of that, he is listed, or at least right now, he's on a regular starter contract. So, like, he's coming in and he's starting there in that 4-4-2. Did he have any injuries? Oh, that's why he didn't play at the beginning part of the season. A lower back stress fracture for 6 weeks. Wow. Okay. Well, somebody welcome to the club, Greg. And in training, breaks his back. So that would explain maybe some of the attribute changes that we saw. Like I think it was the bravery went down. A lot of times you see that with injuries. So now that he's back, can he like regain some of his attributes and like help the club with their form? They're not totally out of it. There is a chance. They're only 4 points off safety. So like they just need a couple wins to kind of make a run here. That'll be really interesting to see next time. All right, Chase in the comments actually said, I think if I stay for that 5-year deal, I'm a lifer in Australia and I'd never move. Well, Chase, you've signed a contract extension for at least 1 year. You've gone from $425 a week to $600 a week. So that's not a full-on commitment. That's just like his contract's coming up. They wanted to get an extension done. Let's see when he signed that. Okay, it was a couple months ago, and that makes sense. Like, there's like 18 months left on your contract. We want to make sure you stick around. There is a minimum fee release clause still. I think he had that last time of $1.6 million, but he's got 2 years left now on this new contract. The other good news is he's playing. He's got somehow, oh boy, Australia, 20 starts in the A-League, 17 starts in the regular season, and 3 in the final series, which must be the playoffs, just like MLS or very similar to MLS. Overall, that time period is on a 6.72, which is okay. I mean, goalkeepers, right? And he's just 18 years old, to be fair, or 18 and a half now. Still has the 2 starts in the Australia Cup on a 6.85. Okay, so let's look at values here. Exact same value, nothing has changed there. It's interesting though that his minimum fee release clause is like right smack in the middle of that, and like nobody's coming to like activate that. He's gained 6 pounds. That's the first thing I noticed when I just pulled up the other attributes that he had in the past. Again, 18 years old. That's, I don't know. I think that's pretty good from a technical standpoint from a goalkeeper at 18 years old, right? If I saw this prospect, I'd be like, all right, I think the physicals need a little bit of work though. We'll get there. His work rate has actually dropped by 1. His technical there in the bottom right under physical, free kick taking is down by 1 from a 5 to a 4. His penalty taking is the same, and his technique has gone from a 2 to a 3. So again, kind of like a pretty mixed bag there, but Chase, you might be right. I'm curious because he did sign the extension, and it's not like he's wanted by anybody. Obviously, we can't tell if somebody's scouting him or something like that. And he's just kind of playing all right. He's not getting 7.0 or higher, as an average rating where I think you'd really start getting some attention as a goalkeeper. But again, to be starting in a serious league at 18 and a half, not bad. Let's go take a look at, oh boy, here we go. They finish the regular season in 3rd, so 5 points off top. And now they beat Wellington Phoenix in the A-League Finals elimination final. That's almost like MLS having MLSsoccer.com as a website. Major League Soccer.com. Anyway, in the semifinal, they lose, is that on penalties, to Western Sydney Wanderers? Can we see that game? We can. Chase on a 6.6. Unfortunate. No, it was over aggregate. Okay, so it wasn't penalties. Oh, so he's missed out on the potential horror show that is that. But they gave up a goal in the 114th minute. Oh, you're so close, yet so very far at that point. Now, I know when there's not, under 23 games going on, like things can change. I just find it kind of interesting. They don't have a goalkeeper listed right now on the under 23 team. There's nobody listed for the under 21s. Under 20 has a 17-year-old goalkeeper, 2 17-year-old, and a 20-year-old goalkeeper, but not Chase, who is valued higher. So maybe that's because you'd think he'd be like listed in the senior team, but he's not going to displace Matt Ryan. And the other guy's 22, who has a higher value. And then there's a 24-year-old with a lower value, kind of like that emergency backup. So it sounds like Chase is probably the under 23 goalkeeper, but I guess they haven't played. He didn't play in the friendly in September of the previous year. Again, he had that 5.9 against Oman and then didn't play the rest of this tournament. And then in September, it doesn't appear that he's in the squad. Potentially, he has an opportunity now with the upcoming games here in the under 23 Asian Cup qualifiers. Are we going to see the resurgence of Chase? Because that could be big on the international stage. If he can do well against some of these teams, does that maybe start getting some eyeballs on him because teams will scout that, like we saw, like, what was it, Ado Den Haag? No, that was with Marcus, but you get the idea. Like, you've got clubs coming from around going like, well, there's a big tournament, let's send some scouts there or something like that. Maybe that's an opportunity for him. Now, Chase has also had some injuries, just one new one since we last saw him. That's in November, a twisted knee minor for 7 days. So I guess the good news is it's not been anything major since 2023. Maybe that's okay. Just really, I think it's a really interesting player. So I'm curious to see what happens when we get to the 3rd year. Really, the questions for Chase are, does he continue to get back into the under 23 good graces? Because I think, again, Matt Ryan eventually is going to age out at the upper level. And I'm not even saying Chase is good enough yet for the senior team, but like, is there a pathway for him to get into the Australia senior team? Because if that happens, I think there's a much greater chance that he makes a move someplace else. Or does he just say like, I like living in my hometown, I'm near my family, and I'm making $600 a week? I mean, that's all right, I guess. Could be better, but we'll have to see. Last thing we'll look at, because I haven't looked at that as all the players, his reputation is nominal. He's still with Adrian Taylor. He does lot his clients to other clubs, so he's willing to push them out there, but also is a very patient negotiator. So we'll have to see kind of how that plays out. Doesn't have any short or long-term plans, so we'll have to see how that ends up. All right, let's go look at Gustav Farkas. Oh, he's moved. I have not looked at this. What I'm doing is I'm pulling up the short list and I just see the names. I'm not looking at the, this side of the screen up here that would have all the stuff. So he's moved again. And I'd noted last time on the video that I'd missed the under 21 caps. I'm not missing them now. He's gone from 2 caps to 5 on the under 21 level and has a senior cap and has moved to Juve. Maybe not in that order of importance. When did this happen? Okay, January of this year, 8,500 a week. I think that he's our top earner thus far, if I'm remembering correctly. He only does 7 starts. Okay, 2 cup starts, so 9 total starts in the Romanian league. In league play, he's on a 6.44. That's quite poor. And he moves to, okay, to be fair, Juventus next gen. So I guess that's like the, whatever is that the B team? I'm not quite sure. They pay, okay. You have a guy who does a 6.44 in the Romanian first league. Liga 1, whatever. And you pay 10.75 million for him? I mean, Chase looks good, to be fair, but like, that's a lot of money to sling at a guy on a 6.44, right? And on top of that, to pay him 8,500 a week. I wonder if there was like other clubs and they were like in a battle for this or something like that. Oh my goodness, I am flabbergasted by that. So Gustav has essentially 8x'd his wages. Not bad if you can get it. And you talk about flourishing. It honestly is one of those things I just pulled up the last episode to go like, did I skip Gustav? And I'm really looking at like the first year attributes. I don't think I am. Okay, from an attribute standpoint, he's improved. We've got some bright yellow now that we didn't have. I think natural fitness was the only, 16 or above that we had the last time we saw Gustav. But he has improved pretty much across the board. Natural fitness has stayed the same, but it was already, pretty high, as I noted. And he gained 7 pounds. So again, I'm not saying he's not a good player, but maybe they just went like, he's playing with a bunch of relatively poor players in this league. He's on a 6.44, but there are the physical capabilities, and he's already got, really good heading, marking, and tackling capabilities. We can make a center back out of this guy. And okay, is that not perfect that he goes to Italy, right? Like, we're going to learn how to park the bus and play elegant defense and, those types of things. That's my interpretation of Serie A a lot of times. But, wow. And his value has gone from 1 million to 3 million to 11 million to 33 million. So he's 11x'd his value. I still think that is an enormous amount of money. Like, that is really surprising to me, the amount of money for a guy moving from the Romanian league, but maybe they were just scouting him. And again, I wonder if there was like some other clubs involved and they're like, fine, we'll go for it. We're going to offer a lot of money. Let's go take a look at his international career. How classic is that? He starts against Spain and comes off with an injury relatively early in the match. Well, let's go see what he gets a 10-minute debut and then gets some sort of a knock. It doesn't say what it was. We can go look at his injury screen. And that's all that he gets. He's not made another appearance at the World Cup qualifying stage since. That's really gutting. And again, since I missed this last episode, I want to cover it. Going back to March of 2024, Gustav gets his under-21 debut, a bunch of friendlies, right, against Finland. He does a 6.5. Then they play Croatia. He comes on, I think, as a substitute there as a 6.5. Doesn't play in the next window in June. Then coming into the September window in the under-21 qualifiers for, I guess, that must be like the under-21 World Cup would be my guess. He doesn't play against Slovakia. He doesn't play against the Netherlands. But he comes back in the October window, plays against Switzerland's under-21s, does a 6.8 there, plays against Belarus, does a 6.3 there, not fantastic, and then a friendly in November, he does one of the 2 games on a 6.9. So that's kind of his under-21 career that has then led to, in the next window, getting a 10-minute debut against Spain. That is gutting. Now what's interesting is that knock doesn't even show up, because that was in March. He did get a concussion shortly thereafter that against FC Rapid for 2 weeks. And then he tore his hamstring shortly there. He comes back from a concussion and then immediately tears his hamstring and is out for 2 months. And that was with the previous club. So that explains, I think, why he didn't have many appearances for Polytechnica Iasi, because he signs on a free and he plays a couple times, he gets a concussion, he rips his hamstring, and then that doesn't fully explain like what happened in the back half of the year. right? Because that club had a bunch of games, right, in the fall period, right? They're on the European calendar. So that doesn't really explain why he didn't play here and then or didn't play much, I should say, and then he moves. So that's a bit odd to me, but I mean, wow. That is wow. I'm he's not going to be listed here because obviously Juve being so incredible, but like that is not at all what I expected. And again, in the next gen squad, he's showing up currently as a substitute, but that could just be the time period that we're in the save. Contract good until 2029, so he's got 4 years left, and his reputation is up to just okay, 1.5 stars. That is wild to me. All right, let's take a look at Marcus. The last time we saw him, Ado Den Haag and Shandong were interested in him. He has moved clubs, but to neither of those, he's now with Mainz. So he does. Do we potentially have, my friends, more than one Wonderkid? Because again, when we set this up, you're talking 160 to 190 for 6 of the players, with the maximum potential ability being 200, and one player being 170 to 200. There's some overlap potential there to where you could be in the high 180s, if you will, for some of those 6 players. Marcus is now valued 20 to 61 million. Prior, he was worth 22 grand to 65 grand. What? Like, what has happened there? So first things first, he moves on a free all of these youth clubs, getting nothing. Nothing. Maybe they still get the solidarity payments. Okay. Go ahead. He doesn't even play. Okay. He joins in January. Okay. 6,000 a week. And then, so in the spring, this past spring, the second half of the season in the Zweite Bundesliga, so they've been relegated, obviously, and then have been re-promoted, so maybe Marcus is the reason for that. He gets 3 starts, 4 subs, doesn't score, as a striker, not great, on a 6.72. Also importantly, he has 3 international starts with a goal and 2 assists on a 7.6 and earns a player of the match. So he comes in and they immediately start using him, even though he got him on a free. So it's like, sometimes you're like, oh, I got that player on a free, we'll let him develop for a little bit. In the Zweite Bundesliga, he steps right in. Again, he's not starting all of the time. But why is his value that high? That's curious. Twisted his ankle, that was a long time ago, so he's not missed any game time due to injury. Again, he's got those 3 caps with Indonesia with 1 goal. We'll take a look at that. Okay, interesting. Let's look at his attributes first here. Decisions and leadership have increased by 1, and then I'm guessing we're going to see some physical stuff here. So agility is increased by 1 to 13, balance up by 1 to 8, and his stamina increased by 1 to 13. That's actually not as much physical change as I was expecting. You know, 18 and a half, that type thing. He's gained 4 pounds. He's not gotten any taller. He's still got the fairly strong left foot, very strong right foot. He does have the player trait of knocks ball past opponent now. So he's developed, but why is he worth 20 to 60 million or 61 million? I think his 3 senior team appearances are all this year against Myanmar. He starts, does a 7.9, but doesn't score. Maybe that's where he got one of the assists, maybe? Yes, he gets an assist and the player of the match despite not scoring because he's on a 7.9. Then he does an 8.1 in the next game in a friendly and gets a goal. And then they take on Lebanon. He does a 6.8 and doesn't score there. This is the Asian Cup qualifiers Group E. This is also interesting that his contract he signed in January of this year is only good until 2027. So that's a 2.5-year deal. They do have an option to extend the contract by a year, but there's no relegation clause or release clause. Because again, Mainz, if they just got relegated and got re-promoted, they might be one of those bubble teams. Depends on how the squad is looking overall. But man, his value has increased so much. That's really blowing my mind right now. He is listed as one of their starting strikers. It's kind of hard to tell. I think they're playing a 3 at the back system because you've got the wing back on the right here. So maybe they're playing like a 5-2-3 wide. And so Marcus would be leading the line for them, but he's listed as a fringe player. So that doesn't make sense. Surely somebody else comes in or is already here. Nelson Viper, maybe? Viper, who is also 11 million to 33 million. So maybe they're kind of rotating that starting spot maybe a little bit. From what I can tell, Marcus made his debut in February. So he moves at the very beginning of the year. And then you've got the winter break that's kind of wrapping up. So is that the 4th potential league game that he could have been involved in. He comes on as a substitute, not long enough to even get a rating. So kind of like that initial, like, let's run him out there. They lose 2-1. He can't make the difference at the very, very end of the game in order to get a victory there. Then he misses the next game, comes on again, it looks like as a substitute against Paderborn in a win. He earns himself a 6.9 there. I think this also means in the next game against SC Verl, he comes on as a sub as a 6.6. Plays against Braunschweig in a loss on a 6.4, again as a substitute. Misses the next several games. He's on the bench against Greuther Fürth, but doesn't come in. Again on the bench against FC Kaiserslautern. Hansa Rostock does, what was that? Looks like he starts against Elversberg and does a 6.8 in a 3-0 win there. And I think he also starts in a loss versus Hanover, and then he starts in a win in the final game of the season against Dusseldorf. Now, they finished the season in second, 5 points off top with Union Berlin, but 7 points clear of Hanover. So I'm just kind of thinking in my head about the schedule, right? Like if you're 7 points clear, you lose to Hanover, but so at that point they would have been, if they end up 7 points clear, I'm just kind of wondering if that's why you start seeing a little bit more game time at the end of the season, is like the club are like, we've got this locked in, like we're getting promoted. Let's start rotating those other guys in, maybe. But now that he's up into the Bundesliga, I've thought about this further since I recorded that earlier part, going like, I'm thinking he probably is not the starter. I think even Nelson Viper, who looks quite good, you probably want another start or like another rotational squad player. I don't think that's Marcus yet. Not to shoot Marcus down, I just go like in the Bundesliga, if you're trying to stay up, you probably are going to play that 5-2-3 with Nelson up top and Marcus. I'd be curious what you think. What would be a good number of appearances for Marcus to get in the Bundesliga? Like, a lot of those are going to be substitute appearances, right? Like maybe he gets to play in the DFB Pokal in the like early stages. Depends on how the club views the Pokal. If they're like, well, we're probably going to get wrecked a lot in the Bundesliga, so let's make a cup run. So maybe he gets some of those like early games, in the cups. If he gets 5 starts, I'd be surprised. So if we get into like the 10 or 15 total appearances with 5 of those being starts, I think that's a really good season in the Bundesliga for a young guy that's just gotten there and is on a fringe player contract. But with the value that high, are they going to feel pressure to say, we need to play this kid, or he's going to be unhappy and going to go someplace else? He's still got the 1-star reputation, or at least he now has the 1-star reputation. I can't remember if he still had or whatever. And he's got the same agent that law as his client and is a very patient negotiator. So if he's not getting the appearances that he or his agent think he should be getting, is he going to start getting, I know he just got there, but I'm just thinking if you're Mainz, you're like, this guy's got a lot of value. We want to keep him happy. Or do they loan him out? Do they potentially bring in like, a backup, a squad player striker or 2, and then they loan Marcus out to another club, maybe down in the Zweite Bundesliga to kind of continue his development? That is really interesting. I'd like to see how that turns out. Which is what we will do next time, my friends. I bet you were like me and you were convinced once we saw CDB, I think we're like, clearly it says Wonderkid. But that doesn't mean he's going to have the best career. The fact that Marcus on a fringe player contract is our highest valued player has legitimately blown my mind. So if you are enjoying this, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment. All of those things tell YouTube to send more viewers to this series. If you've got other friends that enjoy Football Manager, maybe share it with them that way. But next time, my friends, we will see. I think the first player we look at next time is probably going to be Marcus. I'd like to see, does he get loaned out? Does Mainz stay in the Bundesliga? What is the situation there? And then, again, I'm interested in all of them. Like, it's a big episode. There was, what was this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 moves in this episode. So we've got a lot of catching up to do to see how those new starts at those new clubs are going. Is James going to get any appearances for Benfica, or is he going to be stuck in the B team? Will CDB stay with the French team, whose name I'm not going to attempt to pronounce again? But we'll see that next time, my friends. See you then.